Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us this morning Mr. Kasim Afegboa, who is a member of the PDP. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I'll break that down for our first-time viewers. He's a member of the People's Democratic Party, which is the major party in opposition at the federal level. We also have with us Mr. Ahmad Sajo, who is a former commissioner for information in Adamawa State and also a member of the All Progressives Congress, the ruling party at the federal level. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
Well, now it seems that we're getting, should we say, end-of-year report. And it would seem that the Minister for Information is saying we still seem to be okay with regards to debt, which is one area that a lot of Nigerians are raising concern. Again, we've gone to borrowing $30 billion, is what was approved recently by the National Assembly for the presidency to borrow. And people are saying, what is going on? It seems that we're neck deep in debt, but the government says no cause for alarm. Are you alarmed, Mr. Afegboa?
I like your conclusion that no cause for alarm. There is, of course, cause for alarm.
Well, that's what I just heard the minister say.
You see, the minister might be living in a fool's paradise. I think we're just living in self-denial. There is no need for us to beggar the issue that Nigeria is not in crisis. Nigeria is in crisis both at the economic front, at the political front, and at the social front. What we need to do as a government and as people is for us to find a common ground, to articulate issues and come up with initiatives that can take us away from where we are. For you to say a country that spends 2.4 trillion naira to service debts as a 2020 budget that is not in crisis, I wouldn't know what manner of crisis talking about. And as we speak, our infrastructure, road infrastructure, are in complete decay. I don't know if you travel during this Yuletide season, you see a lot of hazards, on the road. People getting to their destination, spending so many hours on the road and all of that because of bad roads. The dry season is here. I expected to see Caterpillar on the road. I didn't see in all the places that I went this period. This is the time for them to start the process of fixing the roads. Because once rainy season comes, they'll give you excuses, we are waiting for dry season. Now dry season is here. We are not seeing action. By the time you are spending, you budget 2.7 trillion for your debt servicing, and your capital project is 2.4 trillion in the same. That means your debt servicing, not that you are paying, the interest you are paying, that's what it means, 2.7 trillion in a budget. Then a minister will sit back there and tell you that we are not in crisis. We're in crisis, of course.
But are we being fair? because he acknowledges that debt servicing is too high. However, the actual debt itself, we're still within borrowing limits.
You see, it's not about the actual debt and within borrowed limits. What you should ask yourself is, what is the plight of the ordinary and average Nigerian? Are we doing any better? Are we not still being considered the poverty capital of the world? Are we improving the lives of the ordinary person?
So indeed, that is the situation today, that the ordinary person still does not feel the impact of government. We understand that we need to do a lot more in terms of infrastructure development, yet we seem to not have the revenue to do it.
That is where I disagree with the system, with the government, because this is the same government that tells you that they're stealing in the past, that they are making a lot of recoveries. They'll tell you, in fact, EFCC will beat its chest to say, yes, we have made XYZ number of recoveries. We have gotten Abacha loot, $322 million. We have gotten other looted funds and all of that. They tell you FRS is making so much impact, it is making more revenue than before. It's only recently when we have a new man that we are seeing that the threshold is even a far cry from what used to obtain as of 2014. What I'm saying is that, are you not baffled? Are you not worried that the government that wants to take us out of the woods is the one budgeting 48 billion naira for education and budgeted 37 billion to renovate?
That's not exactly correct.
No.
I'll leave Mr. Sajo to do the defense, but that's not exactly correct because it doesn't include the money that was budgeted for TED Fund and UBEC and all of those.
See,
I don't know
those are parastatals under education.
Yes.
But for God's sake, if UNESCO standard is 25% of your budget, and you are in far cry from even 8%. You are not even having 7%. What are you telling me about TED fund and all of that? I think we must, take a deliberate attempt to say, we are in crisis in this sector, infrastructure. We are in crisis in education. We are in crisis in the health sector. Anybody who is having headache now, they travel overseas and all of that. Our hospitals are more or less like consulting clinics. So I think we must this government must deliberately sit back and say, this area we want to make a deliberate intervention, and this is what we intend to do.
And some people will say that, what he's saying is very correct. Only recently, was a Fitch. Fitch downgraded Nigeria, and that a lot of people say will remove confidence from our bonds when we go to list. Outside of the country, people might not take our bonds as seriously as they used to. What are your thoughts on where we currently stand in terms of debts and the economy?
No, I think let us put certain things in perspective. My brother here says self-denial. And I think I can see a lot of self-denials from what...
self-denial? How do you mean?
Self-denial from what he is saying. To say that caterpillars are not back on the roads, that maybe he traveled to a different section of the country, I traveled to a different one. Most of the road works now have resumed after the rains, and I've seen a lot of places where there are interventions.
Can you tell us where you saw these interventions?
So
that, I mean, you said he traveled on a different side of the...
Of course,
the road.
yes.
So just tell us if you saw, just tell us where you saw.
I saw road works going on in the eastern part of the country, and I traveled to Kano. I saw them, they have resumed work, they're working. And I've been told that they have resumed in the northeast where I come from.
The eastern part is rather broad, though. Can you be more specific?
No, the eastern part.
You don't have a name of the road?
No, not the name of a particular road, but the eastern part, they have resumed work. I'm sure of that. But that is not, I think that's not just the issue. We're talking about what the minister said. Our debt to GDP ratio is within acceptable thresholds, worldwide. And truly, we are not in crisis. Crisis is as in, a situation where somebody begins to say we are in crisis, we're a nation in crisis. We are not a nation in crisis. We're a nation that is trying to grapple with its own internal problems, and we're doing so very well, and we will definitely get out of the woods. We've set up a very robust economic team, and the economic team is doing very, very good thinking, putting thoughts together to get us out of the wood economically. We're making progress. You would say, okay, one report says Fitch downgraded Nigeria. Another report says World Bank had expressed confidence in the economy of Nigeria. So all of these things are actually, the aggregate of it is that we are not seriously in crisis. We're not in crisis. And
we're not seriously in crisis, or we're not in crisis?
We're not in crisis at all. Let me put it that way. So those that are saying we're in crisis are the ones that are actually in crisis with themselves. You've just mentioned about education, for example. UBEC intervenes in primary education across the entire country. And if anybody says the budget of, UBEC is inconsequential, I think we need to rethink. And then somebody tells you
I think he put it in context. He said that, the recommended is 25%.
25% total budgetary allocation to education for a country.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, the federal government budget, if you add UBEC, TED fund and interventions at other tiers of government, that would be well above the 25%.
I want to look at this report from Fitch. We were revised from stable to negative by Fitch. They say it is traceable to the disruptive macroeconomic policies under the current administration. They also talked about the central bank's complex regulatory measures, rising debt, low fiscal revenue, and inflation. And you say that we're still looking okay.
They said the central bank
Complex
regulatory
measures.
What is complex? The central bank, for
We're hosting
example,
the central bank shortly after this
the
segment.
central bank, for example, reduced certain cost of services.
Yes.
I mean, from commercial banks, easing the hardships of people who utilize the services of commercial banks. Is that a very bad thing? It's not.
That is not all around. That's not all about regulation. I mean, I don't want to let us dwell on that because we're not technical people.
We are not.
We will let them talk about that. But they talked about rising debt. Right now, we're being told that for every $100 that we earn, more than half of it is going to go into debt servicing. It's a worrisome situation.
But the debt, is it not being used to intervene in upgrading infrastructure? And this infrastructure, are they not going to upgrade economic activities within the country?
In that regard,
so at the end of the day... I don't know if
you saw this article, only recently, and I think it's very important that, we put this in context.
Yeah.
You talked about, infrastructure, and infrastructure is very good. We see rail lines being developed across the country. And a lot of
roads too.
Roads too.
Yeah.
However, I'd like to focus a little more on rail.
Yeah.
Rail lines been developed across the length and breadth of the country, which is a good thing because it's going to ease transport and what have you. We've seen just how the Abuja-Kaduna rail, for instance, is helping, especially in the situation where there has been security crisis. However, in the management of that rail system, there have been huge questions being asked, whether the manner in which we are managing it, we will be able to recoup the money that we invested in it. Especially when we consider the fact that we took a loan. We incurred debt to be able to get that infrastructure. Are we running it in a manner that infrastructure will be able to pay back itself?
I think the sustainability factors are considered very well. The truth about it is that, when you want to recoup, you recoup over time. And the calculation is that you set the time limit in such a manner that you don't add too much burden on the people that are using the system. So as far as I'm concerned, the sustainability factors are already there. We're going to recoup and we're going to continue to operate those
Have you tried to travel to Kaduna recently?
Yeah.
Have you read columnists who have written on their trip to Kaduna recently? I'm just asking if you have seen any columnists who have written on the frustrations and the, I don't want to say the corruption, but, the difficulty for passengers' experience in just being able to get seats on the very few coaches available on the Abuja-Kaduna rail
Coaches
line.
are going to be increased. That's just the solution. It means that we need more coaches on that route. It means the route is viable. It then means that it is sustainable. So when you have too many people wanting to travel by rail, and then they're asking for more coaches, and it tells you that it's a sustainable system, and that it can definitely pay for itself. So we just add more coaches, we add more routes, and more people get to ride on the trains, and you recoup.
It looks like you're dying to respond to that.
No, I just find it worrisome when people who should speak truth to power, come on television and you see them almost stammering because the facts are so real, so open to anyone to see, but they try to, play down all this. The issue of train, Kaduna, Abuja-Kaduna train, was fully paid for and almost 80% completed before 2015. So the APC can't claim credit for all of that. But it can claim credit for continuity, for not abandoning the project. That's one. Secondly, on the issue of roads, we don't need to pretend.
It was fully paid for. It's part of the debts which we have incurred.
No, not. I mean, of course, the debt was still
it's
7
part
billion.
Of the debt
yes,
which we have incurred.
As at that time, federal government debts as of 2050 was 7.3 billion. State government's debt was 3.3 billion, and Lagos state alone was at $1 billion. All of this in dollars. So it's not about. From that level now.
7 billion, are you talking about external debt?
Yes, external debt.
The major problem that we have right now is not external debt. And perhaps that's where there's a lot of, managing the truth.
Yes.
The major problem that we have, and this has been from the time of the PDP, and remember then, Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala shouting herself hoarse, that we're getting almost over-borrowed internally. And internal debt, borrowing locally was very, very expensive. We were borrowing in the double digits.
Yes, of course.
Servicing bonds and servicing treasury bills and all of those other instruments which the central bank issues from time to time is very expensive. You have to ask whether there isn't an elitist conspiracy, because when you look at the people who benefit from this, it is you and I who are buying treasury bills and bonds. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is. It is. But what I'm saying is, in essence, is that you talk about debts. If the APC came with a change mantra in 2015, one will expect that they will not get themselves into further debts. They will rather devote time and attention to look inwards and see how they can also defray part of what they inherited. But this time around, we're talking about...
In fairness, no. I have to interrupt you there. When you say that the APC should have taken over and see how they could defray the debt, it's true. But when you look at the fact that the coffers, according to them, were almost empty, all prices had gone down a great deal. We were heading towards
these are very convenient explanations.
No, but these are truths, aren't they?
These are convenient explanations.
Well, aren't they truths?
Okay, now oil, our domestic oil PMS was selling for 87 naira. APC took it to 144 naira. What's the explanation? Did we not promise? I was a member of the APC, so you can't tell me stories about APC. Did you not promise that we're going to make oil to sell for 44 naira? Did we not say that? Where have we left that? I'm saying that if you preach a change mantra, you have to do certain things. Please do them. And you can't take our debts from $10 billion US dollar, $10.3 US billion dollar in 2003 and take it to 27 billion now US dollar. And you are taking another 30 billion, and you are telling me that the rules are what you want. You need infrastructure. You need this. You need all of that. You see, the fact is that the APC-led federal government appears not to have a national strategy to confront some of the issues that they inherited, for which they spoke so much eloquently about how we're coming to fix and all of that. How do I mean? You have a medium economic recovery and medium-term framework, or what have you they call them, and speaking to specific issues in the short term. What is our national rolling plan? What do we intend to, where do we intend to be in 20 years? Earlier before now, we set a target of 2020. We want to be one of the strongest economy in the world in the year 2020. 2020 is just tomorrow. And where are we in that classification? So there has to be a country that wants to make a headway must consciously develop national strategy that to signpost where you intend to be. You are hearing vehicles that are likely going to be using water, using electricity and all of that in the next 10 years to 15 years. What is our own? Even our own innocent who produces vehicles here is not being patronized. Rather, we go outside to import cars and all of that. He's talking about roads. I am not going to start, clapping hands for APC because they think they are doing anything. Most of the roads I traveled in the last 2 weeks, I didn't see Caterpillar. And please call your contractors to find out whether there's, from here to Kaduna, I was still in Kaduna about 3 days ago, whether you will see a Caterpillar on the road walking. From Kaduna to Zaria, whether you will see. From Zaria to this, whether they went on holiday, it's a different matter altogether. But what I'm saying is that dry season is a time you have to utilize to fix roads if you're actually serious about road infrastructure. You don't come back when the rains come, you now come and tell me, oh, please, the rains are here, let us wait for another. How much of the budget of 2019 is being funded? The previous one is about 34% of the budget. This year, we don't even know how much percentage, because I remember vividly that even Fashola spoke in 2017, 2018, that that entire period, there was no capital project for the power or for the energy sector. So when you want to recover your energy sector and you are voting 30 billion to buy generators in your 2020 budget, how do you explain that? I think we must sit at whether you shut down this country, let us be all in darkness, and say, okay, we want to take a holistic view of the energy sector in the next 1 year, let us be in darkness and want to get light, than you voting money for generator. Even in the villa, there's money voted for diesel.
Well, I threw it right back into your court because he made a very solid point when he talked about subsidies. Till date, we're still not very clear on where we stand in terms of how much the country spends on subsidies. Only recently, though, we were told that, oh, as a result of border closure, oh, some of our petrol is not going out anymore, and so we have started saving money on subsidies. But how much we're actually saving, no one is telling us. I think the last time we heard anything in terms of clear figures on what was happening with the NNPC and payments of subsidies was when Mrs. Kemi Adeosun was still Minister of Finance, and she talked then about under-recoveries, how the NNPC is incurring heavy losses as a result of under-recovery owing to monies we were paying on subsidies. Where are we in that regard when it comes to clarity on the road path to Nigeria being self-sustaining in providing our energy needs, especially with petrol, diesel, and all the other petroleum byproducts?
Very simple. We are where we are. That,
what does that mean?
That today, you could walk into any filling station and enter with your car and buy fuel without any queues and without anybody collecting fuel subsidy and then still selling it for you. At least I know where I come from. We used to buy fuel 250 to 300 naira a gallon. When I mean a liter. When actually we were told it was 87. So at least now it's uniform all over the country. You buy it at 145. All over the country, and you go to filling stations and you get and you don't see any queues. So at least there's stability in that. And with the closure of the border now, we now know exactly what is our daily consumption of fuel.
Please kindly tell us, because I don't know. What exactly is our daily consumption?
But, well, that is for the NNPC to tell you. But at least the NNPC says they now know. And the NNPC is responsible.
But they're not briefing anybody on what the figures are. Shouldn't Nigerians know?
Well, Nigerians will know. The NNPC is the responsibility of the NNPC. They will tell Nigerians. But then we now know, the NNPC now knows our daily consumption of fuel, and that is a plus for us, so we can now plan with respect to fuel consumption in the country. And that's why we have no queues, no difficulties in obtaining fuel at the end of the year this time around.
At what cost has that come to us? We know that as it currently stands, our refineries are in no shape to produce what it is that we consume. That was not what the APC said they were going to do when they came into power. We were even told that, I think, was it by 2019, former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, if I remember, Ibika Chukwu was always saying that by 2019, we should be at a point where we're producing, is it all the petrol we need or something to that effect? I'm trying to be sure that was what he said. It seems that the goalpost has since moved.
Yeah, because you see, the truth about it is that the decay inherited was way beyond expectations. Nobody had expected things to have been the way they were
or
at
is
the
it
time.
the lack of sincerity, more or less?
No. What is the lack of sincerity? You can see that what was inherited was far more than what was expected.
What was inherited?
Decayed infrastructure.
What precisely was inherited that we didn't know?
Decayed infrastructure. Everything we're talking about. Should we be talking about roads at this point? Should we be talking about refineries at this point? Should we be talking about all of these things at this time? These are the things we inherited. Things that were not working. And so, you know, everybody thought we were inheriting a system that will work, and we put, just like he acknowledged, the concept of the APC was, when we take over power, we would not abandon anything that was ongoing. We will continue. And continuity was the expectation. But you can't continue what is not there.
I'm going to give both of you a chance to just say something quickly, to maybe something positive. I mean, what you would like to see come in. It's already tomorrow. Tomorrow is New Year's Day. And of course, we always like to end the year in hope and have good hopes for the new year. So I'm going to say, you know, give you a chance to say what you expect to see come 2020.
No, just to refer his mind back to 2011 when President Buhari was contesting election, and he talked about issue of subsidy and that anybody who still indulges in subsidy was being fraudulent and all of that.
Well, I've been told that
after 7
I will let you finish your thoughts. Let's quickly go on this break. I'll let you finish your thoughts when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Kasima Febwa is still with us. He's beg your pardon. He is a member of the PDP. Yes, he used to be spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization. We still have with us Ahmad Sajo, who is a former Commissioner for Information in Adamawa State and also a member of the APC. Gentlemen, we have 60 seconds each to say something positive to Nigerians.
I was just you know, running your mind through the fact that subsidy. We still pay over $1 trillion for subsidy.
But he said something, though, that we don't have to queue for petrol. Usually,
we were not queuing for petrol before now.
End of the year is usually a time for fear for a lot of Nigerians.
We were still paying subsidy in the region of 250 billion, 300 billion. Now it is 1.4 trillion. For a government and a president that said anybody who is paying a subsidy is fraud, you know. So, but the APC must wake up to its responsibility of providing leadership for the country. What we have now, of course, the presidency has confirmed that they have a cabal, that it is peculiar with presidency that anywhere you have leadership, you should expect cabal. So we don't know whether it's the president that is presiding, whether it's the cabal that is presiding, because we have discordant tones coming out from the presidency almost every time on issues. But talking about 2020, we are hoping that they will sit down to the realities that stare us in the face and not come on television and be telling Nigerians that it is all about El Dorado. It is not. Our roads are bad, there's hunger, there's poverty, there's deprivations. And so Nigerians are expecting that APC will come up with a national strategy that will deepen the narrative of our economic policies and political policies, to the extent that we'll be able to get certain things right that will impact on the people. As we are now, we are sharply divided as a country, whether you like it or not. And the government seems not to be engaging the people in conversation. There are regional conversations, but there's no national conversation. There's no consensus on issues. So nepotism has become an issue, favoritism, selective amnesty, and all of this. This is not the kind of narrative we want to see in a 2020 Nigeria. They should please sit back and tell Nigerians that, yes, we are sorry for the past, now we are ready to govern.
Thank you very much. I think he has said what I'd expected him to say. As the PDP, they are sorry for what they have done, and that they are ready now to work with the APC in the understanding that we have just one country, and we have a responsibility, a duty, all of us, to work for the progress of our country. And I want to assure Nigerians that at least we've understood the situation, we know where we are, and we're designing roadmaps, and we know where we want to take Nigeria to in the year 2020. We just hope and pray that those on the other side would also begin to see Nigeria as a country that we all need to come together to work for, and will understand that governance is not about individuals, it's not about the person that is there, but it's about a system, an institutional system that develops a country through collective efforts. And we must begin to also display a lot of appreciation of the democracy we profess to be Democrats. You know, democracy is all about understanding that we can differ in our views, but we need to have a consensus about the country, the nation, and the way it's moving forward. And I think I want to assure Nigerians that 2020 will definitely be a year of hope for the country.
Well, we certainly hope that it will be a year of hope indeed. We have to thank both of you for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. Kassim Afebua is a member of the PDP, and Ahmad Sajo, former Commissioner for Information at Adamawa State and also a member of the APC. The program will continue shortly. Please stay with us.